sets the Viegos, and hey, we actually got, oh my god, they did it. I'm the TT coach, guys.
Oh, TT Lyrics stepping into the arena here. The bands straight on towards Cream. Let's see if this can pay off for TT. And it's going to be set left open here with the LeBlanc having to be banned away from but the Nocturne is going to be the pick from TT. They're deciding, you know what? It's our turn to go for the dives.
I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, take away the other power pick from them. Sure, sets open and Rumble. I feel like those are the two things you would assume OMG go for here is pick setup for new, maybe put a Rumble in the jungle because it has been Aki's other big pick other than the Xin Zhao, but maybe instead wanting to opt towards the same style. Hovering Ezreal, we already saw the Xin Zhao is still left open, and that is something that Aki himself can go for and has been his other big pickup other than the Rumble. So you left the power picks open, and OMG aren't even necessarily opting into grabbing them.
So Ezreal set can be the options here. Like you said, the Rumble available, which, I mean, like, I'd be totally down to see TT just fully channel into the dive themselves and just try and emulate exactly what OMG do. The Kai'Sa would certainly lean into that. We've seen Sam D play plenty of Kai'Sa. We know he can play this champion, especially when he's set up for success. You could go for something like a Nautilus, or better still, I would say lock in a jungler here. Maybe something like the Rumble that can certainly lean into that. Maybe even a Diana, but whether you want to go for that blind is a different question.
Yeah, that's the thing, because for TT, I think it's pretty interesting. I think Rumble's the thing that makes the most logical sense here, but with the stigma around Rumble in the past few series, and the fact that Xiaopeng actually does have like a massive champion pool, right? The Nidalee, the Rek'Sai, he's played the Lee Sin, he's played the Nocturne himself. But still, they want to go towards what is considered by many Xiaopeng's best champion. Xiaopeng, a Nidalee and Rek'Sai 2-trick pretty much on Korean server, though can play everything, right? Xiaopeng has showed that, but this is definitely his most comfortable pick. Doesn't necessarily go with the first two champions it's shown in draft, but when you do have a champion of this level for Xiaopeng, I can understand why you would want to go for it.
And, you know, with this, the Braum coming out, OMG, we're switching styles here as Cold goes for the peel. I will say, I don't know if is a big Zoe player himself here, but I could see Zoe working real well with this comp. You've got the killer instinct and the spears to follow up on bubbles. You've got a Nocturne that can pull the trigger when you find a good opportunity for a pick. I feel like that could be a really good angle for TT to try and play that kind of almost long-range pick composition.
I do also want to hit real quick on what OMG are doing, because, you know, maybe there's some fans out there who have seen some of OMG but haven't seen them every game. There was one series where OMG didn't go with full dive compositions. They played 2 games of straight 1-4 where it was things like this. It was Ezreal with the Braum. You would have a disengage in topside as well, or poke champions. I think that game was specifically the Jace, where you have Jace, Ezreal, Braum, and then you keep Cream on one of his side laning assassins, and then they played out that way and it looked pretty good. So this isn't something too unfamiliar for the side of OMG. I do also like the bans coming out from them. Banning out Engage Support and Rakan, who also has a pretty good laning phase up against the Braum. You can just poke him out and you have a lot of freedom to move around the map. Very hard for Braum to lock you down with this passive as well because of all your mobility. Also taking away the Rel. I would expect for TT, I think you kind of just ignore the bot lane matchup, and for them, just go towards the Leona or Nautilus, keep all-inning on that straight up dive. And now for OMG, it's about where they want to go with jungle. Xin Zhao's open. It fits the composition. It's what we see paired with these types of champions so often.
This is not relevant to the draft. I just appreciate how much camera time the production crew on the Chinese side gives to the girl that comes to every OMG game with the unstop Abel sign. Like, every single time Abel is playing, we see that sign on screen at least 5 or 6 times across the day. I appreciate that. We got some good signs here, and production crew want to show that. I respect it. We are going to see the Galio locked in, which I was not necessarily expecting from but I can definitely see the logic here. Certainly a great follow-up to the Nocturne.
Definitely, right? I mean, their composition, I think, works very well together so far. Now, we're getting a twist. So we're actually getting this down in the bottom lane. One nice thing about Galio against a lot of different like tank support matchups, is you do pretty much guarantee prio with Winds of War and then your passive just being able to move constantly. You know there's not a ton of threat coming out from Ezreal Braum. Sure, Ezreal Q does proc the Braum passive though, so you know there are windows there if SAMD overextends a little bit, but at the same time, you have a lot of global and just map pressure on the side of TD. And you know what? They might have banned Cream out, but Cream finds another melee assassin to bring into the mix.
And you know what? We're seeing big smiles on the faces of the OMG players as that is locked in. This feels like, you know, TT trying to push OMG beyond their breaking point, right? Trying to push them into a position that's not so favorable, but I don't know. OMG, the mood in the team seems good. I'm kind of liking the look of this composition from them. It's much slower, it's much more late game focused, but still, you have Cream set up on something that can be the hyper carry, and the rest of the team is kind of there to set Avel up to kite around these fights and get the damage out. We saw he can definitely get the damage out in game number 1. TT up against it here. They're 1 game down in the series, and this time they've gone for the dive composition. We've got to find out if they can execute on it.
Yeah, and you know, I'm really excited to see, especially the Caston coming out for Cream, right? This is something that is considered a good matchup into the Rise, right? You're going to get poked in and pushed out early potentially, but especially with the shield coming out from your Q, there's a lot you can get done there. And then especially at level 6, Rise really has no tools to ever get away from you once you do jump on him, even being able to try to dodge out on some of his damage coming from his Qs. So Cream getting a matchup he's probably extremely familiar with. And then I'm just more interested to see how the side of OMG brings it together, where once again, this is kind of like the comp I was talking about, where it's a bit of a 4-1 coming out. You can play all 3 lanes with Set too if he can find a bit of an advantage, but definitely going to do well grouped. You're going to want to play as this 4-man core with Kassadin coming off on flanks. And for the side of TD, it's complete opposite. You want to be pulling them apart. You want to be using all of these globals to find picks onto stragglers of OMG. And then Nidalee pretty much just there as comfort for Xiaopeng to facilitate the early game. And it seems like the same thing can be said for SAMD, who can follow up on putting in Longxing jumping in.
I have to say, Lyric, I'm excited, man. I feel like we have polar opposite compositions from game number 1, right? We have literally switched identities between the two teams, where in game number 1, it was TT trying to kite back with the cog board, the late game scaling, playing for the team fights, wanting OMG to engage into them. This time around, it's the opposite way around, where OMG are the ones kiting back. OMG are the ones playing for the late game. It's down to TT to set the pace of this game, but also up in the top side.
Oh,
bit of a change up.
We get a lane swap.
Oh, we do.
Very smart from TT.
So talk me through this. Talk me through the thought process here.
Again, so I walked through how Kassadin is a very good lane matchup into the Rise. Rise pretty much only has one option, which is at level 1. You could walk past him queuing you, wait for the shield to end, and then look for an auto WQ auto combo and try to win trades that way. But we know that wouldn't really work for all that long. Kassadin still coming ahead, but now you're up against an AD mid laner, so your shield not going to be useful at all. Longxing also should have permanent prio in this lane. You have the spell shield yourself to try to negate some of Cream's damage coming out. And then in the top lane, you know, you don't have any kill pressure as Rise against Set, but you're fine just farming. There shouldn't be too much pressure on you either, unless New blows a flash, looks for a flash face breaker, and then Aki's there and turns that into a gank until level 6. So overall, I think TT just put themselves in a place where they now have prio in mid, and they have Rise in a matchup where he's fine to just farm.
Yeah, for sure. And like, let's be honest, it's going to be pretty difficult for Nude to close the gap onto Yeah, right? Unless he misplays significantly with that phase rush, it's very easy to kite out for the Rise. So we'll see if it's going to work out for TT. They've set themselves up in the early game, and especially Xiaopeng will have a lot of freedom in this game. It's down to him and Aki once again to set the pace for their teams. And I feel like Yeah is actually a pretty gankable lane, right? Because we always talk about Nidalee with things like the Renekton and things like the Set that can guarantee a spear. Well, Rise can kind of guarantee that too, right? The Rune Prism onto a melee target is very easy to land. Spear follows up. That's a potential kill.
The thing is, you got to do it when you know where Aki is. Because I feel like 2v2, Aki and Nu are stronger. You have easier CC to land in the face breaker. And then you have like an easier time getting your burst down because Nidalee and Rise are both reliant on skill shots. So for Xiaopeng, I'd love to see him a lot more combo with mid. Since we know Longxing's primarily going to be pushing out, I don't think it's going to be too much about finding early ganks. It's going to be just utilizing that lane prio to take double scuttle. So we actually see right now TT are doing just with their bot lane in general, looking for these invades and playing a lot to like how we saw V5 playing earlier on in the day.
Xiaopeng is actually going to get himself a double scuttle there as his bot lane leashed the bottom crab for him. Nice teamwork coming through there as Aki, he said that this is going to be an easy gank setup for OMG, and this could be the opportunity as, yeah, very deep in the lane, but with this massive wave, I think Nu just wants to be able to go for that one. Yeah, it gets aggressed upon by Aki himself, but it is just going to be that trade. You could see Nu still under the tower. There was too many minions that he would have to lose to make that play.
I still think that's a really good play coming out from the side of OMG to where you put Yen in a very awkward position with in terms of, right? I would imagine he'd probably want to TP back to lane right now to not lose out on any minions, but instead he's just going to walk and he's going to build himself a bit of a CS advantage. The trade you're getting on the opposite side is it's opening up the counter jungling from Xiaopeng that we talked about, getting some of these invades down. OMG know to anticipate it, but still Cold not able to find him. He is going to get out with stealing away that one camp from Aki.
Gets a cheeky little Gromp out of the equation, not too shabby, and already look at the CS lead that he has. Obviously, the 2 crabs plus the Gromp, that equals 12. Look at the CS difference, or at least it was 12 when I started the sentence. Azaki has been able to get himself at least his wolves to try and close that gap, but Xiaopeng off of the reset, already getting himself a tier 2 component, getting a bit of AP, a little bit of extra burst damage in there as well, so it does feel like TT in a good spot off of some of these early game shenanigans, but we do have to remember that inevitably there's a Kassadin in the game. I'm sure there will be plenty of people in Twitch chat with the Monka S's, the pointy finger, the clock, the 16. It's gonna happen. And inevitably, if OMG can get to that point, that's where Kareem will be terrifying. But it's very difficult to get to that point. Kassadin does take a long time before he pretty much exists.
The good thing is, even ignoring just the Kassadin scaling and when he becomes a monster, just in straight up 5v5s, OMG have a much better formation, right? Like, they have a very standard front to back, 2 tanks in the front, Cream off on the side, another peeling champion in Aki that can engage or disengage, able outputting more DPS than Samd should be able to do on the opposite side. So it feels like if we get to a point where, you know, we're like 2 items in, Divine Thunder, mana, Mirror Mana coming out for the Ezreal, Nu has gotten ahead in that top lane matchup, that straight up 5v5s will pretty much always be OMG favored, unless TT pull off some kind of like insane wombo where they're catching out Cream or Able right as the fight starts with all their globals. So I think there's good things on both sides. Going back to the earlier trade where, right, we pretty much traded Nu getting ahead and putting Ye behind for Xiaopeng getting ahead for TT. That trade out definitely favors the side of TT for what their composition needs to do early on to snowball a game. You want your jungler ahead. You want to see him start linking up with Longxing soon and looking for plays around the map. I would love to see them start hovering towards mid, looking to go punish Aki specifically and utilizing that paranoia.
So I want to move the conversation down towards that bottom side for a second here, although I may not have time of Xiaopeng moving in here. We do have Drake on the map. We do have Xiaopeng trying to grab this crab. I don't think there's going to be a fight, so I'll continue the conversation. What do you make of this Galio support pick? Because obviously it was a flex, but ultimately things like Nautilus, things like Leona could have been available as well instead of going for that Galio in the support position. Do you think the flex was valuable enough to have the Galio instead? Do you think the Galio is just fine as a pick? Because it definitely feels like something that's not particularly prevalent in the meta.
I think it's good for what TT ended up doing, for the fact that if you imagine TT's comp with the Leona or Nautilus, you still don't win 5v5s against OMG, right? Braum's going to dissuade everything you do. They still have a better frontline. They still have more DPS than you. So pivot into this pick comp where now you have a different win condition that you can play towards, and you're going to do what OMG last game where you're not really opting into those straight up 5v5s. So I think it works out a lot better for them. It also goes back to a point I made in draft where Galio also does allow you to get prio in most matchups. You can see right now, right? Taisa and Samdine Pudding have just been pushing out consistently. They leashed that first crab. They're able to keep vision up, and it gives Xiaopeng the freedom to do what he wants to do. So it was a really nice pivot in their draft in my mind. I still do like OMG's draft more because TT's has a lot of like you have to do a lot to get ahead, right? Like you need to find these global plays, you need to find these picks, you need to start invading, you need to get ahead. So I think OMG should have an easier time. TT though, they are going to finally start utilizing the tempo that they have to make some plays.
Yep. Time to see if they can make it happen. TT moving up to the mid lane. You can see Abel is going to be the last one to the party here, but remember, Cream is on Kassadin. We have seen early game Kassadins pop off in the LPL before. It is a thing that happens. Angel especially, I think, the master of the early game Kassadin here in the LPL, but it's not going to happen today. As TT just going to grab this Herald and contested on this one. It's a bit of a shame, really, for OMG, because they had started to move everyone. Abel going to have missed a little bit of CS down in that bottom side for moving up towards the mid lane. But ultimately, he can return back down there and get a bit of solo time on the wave.
Going back to your point about Kassadin, I just remember last year where, like, Kassadin's in the game, we all talk about, like, yeah, scaling items, power spikes, level 11, level 16, and then every single game, level 7, Kassadin is like 3-0 or 4-0, and we're just like, what is going on? Gets to a skirmish very early on with a TP, has like numbers advantage or something, or is punishing a team's overextension onto the enemy team, and Doing Being Angel especially were the two I remember really having big Kassadins in 2020.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, it was against good teams as well. This wasn't just like, oh, well, we're just bodying the bottom tier teams with Kassadin in the early game, and it's just because we're better players. Like, this was high-level League of Legends. They were managing to make Kassadin work in the early game. It was all about just, like, trying to sneak him in at the end of the fight and just sweep kills up, stacking that ultimate. Even at level 6, if you've got a bit of mana in the early game, you can see a tier and a lost chapter there. You can stack the ultimate a couple of times and go in for just a big burst towards the end of the fight that can turn things around. So, certainly possible. We've seen it happen before. And look, if there's any mid laner right now in the LPL that I want to see doing something like that, it's Cream. Let's be honest. This is the guy that I want to see being able to bring out the crazy plays that nobody's expecting.
I also just want to highlight that TT opted into changing their lane matchups back to, you know, what you'd expect, right? Yeah, back in mid, Longshing back in top. Yeah, is it the point where he pretty much just spammed the wave, especially because he has blue? So my guess is that's why they feel comfortable putting him back in that matchup. Either solo laner is going to get pushed in by New at this point, but TT, keeping up their mid-bot prio, are going to be able to secure this first dragon.
The first dragon taken, but it's at 11 minutes, so it's going to be a long dragon timer. Cole trying to disengage, or maybe re-engage as they go on to putting double TPs coming through. And we've got a set on the front line. Lunsheng with a spell shield to start things off. Actually stops the showstopper, but it doesn't matter. And Galio flying into his doom. Pudding has to get on out of there because this don't feel so sweet anymore. OMG just about winning out the fight. It's only 1-0, but it's a win.
I mean, we saw what TT wanted to do, right? They thought that they can try and find the pick right now, but teleports instantly coming out by the side of OMG. They aren't able to get the burst down, and they don't really have all too much burst at this point unless you're able to lock someone down and guarantee a Nidalee Spear hits as well. It's one of the reasons why I do say that I favor OMG's draft. It's like, sure, I point out I like the Galio, but I like the Galio more than the other options for TT. It feels like anything else is pretty hard as we go into the replay here. Braum doing such a good job at keeping them at arm's length, brings up the shield. They're not able to get him down. All the members of TT ending up being low after the Arcane Barrage. And then Longsheng being in such an awkward position with his TP. It feels like he is forced to do this or his team's going to die regardless, but yeah, I think that engage overall was just a bit of an over push coming out from the side of ThunderTalk.
Oh, that's the little combo we were talking about. Cream gets out with his life, but the Rune Prison into the spear. Very nice to see out from TT.
And they are going to be able to get some plates onto Ye. And this champion as well is going to be a pretty big deal once we get later on, right? Going to be putting off a ton of damage with how fast he is able to DPS. And especially because they are also keeping Cream from being able to find any impact. It's not too big of a deal because, right, as Kassadin right now, you don't necessarily need to have an impact. OMG are very much in a situation that TT were last game. If the game is going slow, if nothing's happening, if not too many objectives are being forced too quickly, then I think the side of OMG is happy with how the game's going.
And I will say, it always feels like the team with superior scaling, the team that doesn't have to make anything happen, in my mind, except for certain teams, is usually the favorite, right? Like with TT's current record in the LPL, with the teams that they've struggled against, some of the games that we've seen from them, I can't feel confident for them until I see them making proactive plays and forcing advantages with this composition, because inevitably, if we do have an inactive mid game, which so far it has been relatively inactive, OMG are totally okay with that. It's easy to play the don't do anything composition and just clear waves and just chill, right? That's not that hard to just not fight. For the side of TT, it is hard to make sure you're getting OMG to split apart, finding opportunities to pick them apart. But New is trying to look juicy, trying to bait. It's not going to happen.
Even when we think about later in the game, right? TT's comp looks very potent at playing around side lanes, because not only can you like have Xiaopeng and play towards the side and Longxing and Pudding follow up, but you have a very mobile Kassadin who you'd be trying to gank, who I think is very high likely being able to get away from a play like that unless you know, force, like, flash into CC him, trying to lock him down and then burst him out quick enough. As I'm going to pause. Longxing, okay, he knows.
Fear in. Oh, he gets his blue buff. Should be able to dip out. In comes Longxing as well. This is OMG forcing the play here as Cream trying to make a play onto himself. He'll zip out as well. And OMG, you know, they didn't get the blue buff. They try to go for the steal. It's not going to happen. There's a lot of resources expended on either side just for a blue buff here that doesn't even end up getting stolen.
I mean, still, OMG, no one goes down. They blow a lot of tools from the side of TT. TT will be able to get this mid lane turret because of how the laning phase initially went, with Longxing being the one to go against the Kassadin. So going to be a bit of a gold injection, but still, you're actually not up in gold. You know, gold is even. OMG, even right now on the map, slightly ahead, but, you know, farm's going to go back and forth. So even on both sides, Dragon up in 50 seconds. We're going to see what TT can do to find a pick going into this, or if teams will just opt into trading, because this OMG, you just run it down mid right now like they're doing, walk in as a unit, and then TT don't have too many options. Maybe trying to get people low like they're doing now with the Kaisa W, as well as some spears coming out from Xiaopeng, but we've seen how much Braum can do to stop any of that from being meaningful.
Yeah, and I think especially for OMG, if they can trade, allow another Drake to go over and instead go for the Rift Herald, like finding more gold for themselves, but more importantly, stopping a gold snowball in favor of TT, stopping any towers going down. I feel like that buys more time. But then again, you know, the Drake can often buy you 5 minutes on that Soul timer, on the Elder Dragon timer as well. And the longer they delay that, the better. But right now, doesn't feel like TT have been super proactive on the Drakes, right? Oh my days, that spear damage. Poor Abel, the poor soul. Takes a javelin to the face and he really felt it. But TT, as I said, not been super proactive on the Drakes, but they're looking to change that. So they're going to get this one just about on spawn.
I mean, it's crazy that your win condition to be able to get out neutral objectives, so is for Xiaopeng to be able to hit a spear like that and then force the enemy team to not be able to fight you. So right now it's working. If Xiaopeng's hands are going strong, it will continue to work. And if there's anyone's hands we believe in here in the LPL, it is Xiaopeng's.
Yeah, there are, you know, a couple of other players that are in the conversation. One or
Xiaopeng.
two. Yeah, I mean, Xiaopeng, I think, probably the best player in the world. I think there's an argument there, but there are one or two other players that are in the conversation. I think it's fair to say. Yu Yanja, for example, definitely up there.
Oh, Haro.
Haro, yep, Wooming.
Ruby. I don't know why
we'll just list everyone that's ever been on Rogue Warriors. Do and B actually is in the conversation.
SMLZ. Okay. Well,
anyway.
You know, both teams contesting Vision for Rift Herald right now. Cream on his way, doesn't have TP available. I like what TT are going to do, though. They're not going to instantly put all their eggs into the basket of Rift Herald. They're going to send to push out bot wave and try to force them to lose something.
And I have to say, I feel a little betrayed by TT in this game. The fact that they would draft and force OMG to not have assassins and take my Fiesta away from me. I was promised 2 Fiestas today, Lyric. We got a Fiesta for our first series. The first game of this series was actually pretty high level, honestly. Like, pretty well played by OMG in the grand scheme of things.
I think both teams, honestly.
Yeah. Aside from the contest with TT on the Baron that obviously went a bit awry, but you know, the League of Legends, there has to be a winner. Not everyone can play perfectly all the time. But we've got a Herald going on here. TP comes on through. TT want to fight this one out. Gonna be the re-engage as So far, so good for the side of OMG. They're just staying strong, staying grouped together. Aki going for a play onto Pudding, forces him out of the play completely. Lin Xing forced away. Xiaopeng going to be pretty much the only one that's still full HP here. But yeah, and Santi's still doing okay as well. Cream fighting for priority in the mid lane. And remember, it's OMG that are looking to scale in this game, and yet they seem to still be able to just go toe-to-toe at 18 minutes.
That's the thing, right? It goes back to the formations in 5v5s we talked about earlier. That OMG's formation is just far superior to anything TT can have. And even another point about the Kassadin, specifically against what TT have drafted. You don't have any, like, instant point-and-click CC, right? For you have to hit the E first to land the root. For Pudding, like, there's a channel time. Sure, you could just do it instantly, but your Cream still has time to react. And then you have the Fear Tether on Long Xing. So Cream will be able to play this game however he wants in team fights.
Yep, New has TP'd in. Cream has TP, but with Herald resetting, he might be able to just rift waddle his way across the map here. And you know, even just the threat of that TP looks like it might be enough to keep TT away from this play. Another spear onto Abel from Xiaopeng. He's low on mana, but Herald down to 4,000. Cream is arriving. Xiaopeng is there. News on the backline. Look at the engage Haymaker to keep himself alive. Pudding staying there. Cream jumps onto the Galio. Not the greatest target, but Abel follows up. Cream still going strong. Xiaopeng stunned by the Brawn passive and taken down by Abel. And OMG with the scaling composition, winning the early fights, and Abel with the hat trick. It feels like everything is going their way.
Yep, TT not able to find avenues to pull people across the map. We didn't see any early invades looking for picks onto people like Aki from OMG. You know, the PZX was not on the Rift today for TT, or he would have been doing that as we saw today first series, but for OMG, they're able to play out this kind of composition. It's nice to see. It's something we've already seen earlier on in the split. Is it's not necessarily just about diving in. OMG's like understanding of the game, understanding of how to play to their win conditions overall has just completely leveled up since the last split. We're gonna see the initial flank coming out from New does get onto the backline, face breaker onto only Pudding, as well as the Haymaker, and then Abel and Cream, I mean, so much confidence in their play. They're just a word that's just synonymous with OMG at this point. Decisiveness, confidence. They're just always willing to go in and look for these plays. And now Abel, a player that you actually spoke really highly of coming into today. You know, you didn't want him to be overshadowed. Definitely living up to your expectations, Munch.
So far, so good. Now, I want to pose a question to you, Mr. Lyric. You're mentioning words that could be used to describe OMG. Do I dare utter the word mojo?
Don't do it,
Could they be put in that category? Do you believe in the mojo of OMG?
You know, they're like on the cusp. You know, they're in the coffee maker right now. But wait, we have an engage. I actually don't feel good about this for TT.
Aki is going to be able to cut this one back. Cold the target right now. Will go down. True shot barrage though to answer, and so far so good as Abel is free fire, and he's already got two, and he's looking for more. Yet in trouble. Xiaopeng goes down as Aki grabs one for himself. And now they can follow up onto the rest of them. New chasing under the tower, just shy on the Haymaker, but it don't matter. It's 6-2. Abel survives the burst, and yeah, Cream went down, but ultimately OMG, they'll buy themselves a Drake. They'll buy themselves at minimum an extra 5 minutes, but at maximum a potential win condition.
I feel like that was the best you can hope for is TT as well, right? Because New wasn't there. You were thinking you could pick some off before other members were able to follow up, but still the initial engage didn't look that good, as I was saying going in. You do have 5-men here for the side of TT, but specifically this Braum just doing so much, buying so much space. You don't have any skill shots coming in onto other members. Nice flash coming out from Cold as well. And just look, no one's able to get damage down onto Aki and able to start this one off with. And if you're not bursting out these initial damage dealers, you're never going to be able to find the picks that you need for TT. So they do take down 2 overall, and they only lose out on 1 more member, but they also lose out on the health bars to be able to contest the following Drake.
Yeah, tough one for TT, not being able to turn that into much. And this is one of the powers of that Braum pick as well. Cold buying so much time and space for his squad, trying to keep Cream alive. And Abel, TT have to commit so much just to kill the 2 players that Abel, literally no one even looks at him. I don't think he even took an auto attack in that fight. Like, he didn't even have to try to kite that one out because nobody was focused on him. He's the guy that has all the... Oh, look at his items. He's already got 3 items for himself. Like, it's not even gonna be easy to kill him if you do focus him. But they wouldn't even try to focus him. He has the Frozen Heart now, so forget the damage that Lan Xing and Sam D will do to him. As I think, yeah, actually the Praise Seeker from Sam D did find the Skull Crab there. Nicely done. But now we have Baron onto the map, Mr. Lyric. That could be an opportunity for TT. Maybe that is the objective that they need to be able to force these fights and find a favorable trade.
You're right. So what they need to do is wait for OMG to reset, hope they have no vision or 3 of them show on bot side so they get Baron. Because I'll be straight with you, Munch. I do not see any scenario. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see any other scenario where TT can be able to force his Baron. If they just started out of nowhere, right? Sure, you're going to try to turn. You can try not putting do that, but there's so much range at OMG you're playing with. You're not going to be able to get onto Abel or Cream. They just have too much mobility like we hit on earlier. It feels like at most you would just be buying time to hit some good spears from Xiaopeng, but Cold and New are just able to soak those themselves, and heck, maybe New, you're even giving him a position to find some kind of flank coming from, you know, a side lane. So TT not in the best of positions, and OMG know that. OMG can just ignore that everyone's right in front of them, take a turret, go in 3v4, back off, spam some emotes, have a cup of coffee, have some lunch, go home happy.
It's comparable to a Morgana binding at this point, the amount of activities you can do during it. News down in the bottom side of the map. He's going to be able to take himself top a tier 1 tower. Or is he? TP coming in and everything coming in. Actually, New is in big trouble, but the TP's to answer as well. New goes to the showstopper. He's buying so much time. Cream has arrived, and yes, low on HP. It's going to be time for a Kassadin pop-off, or is it only 1 kill for him so far? Rift walk away, trying to get out of damage, but the flash has come through, and Cream is taken down. Uh-oh. Oh no, oh no, it's gonna be the Baron, 5,000 HP, OMG trying to just burn through this one, arriving, drops a ward in, can they burn it? Sam D moving in to try and make the play, Baron goes down, the answer comes through from TT, Sam D exhausted on the front line, Cold tanking up the damage, they're getting engaged upon here, Abel still going strong, but the spear lands from Xiaopeng, I don't think he can 1v1 this, and Abel's back into the pit, Aki fighting in the meantime as Sam D gets absolutely chunked out, Abel versus the world, 1 more auto would finish Sam D, Xiaopeng on the front line just ain't tanky enough, and Abel takes them all on.
And people need to stop giving this champion to such good AD carries. We saw Aiming do this earlier on in the week, like literally exactly the same play over the Baron wall, and now able to do it again. TT just completely flopping, and sure, it might only be a 3k gold lead for OMG, but it feels more like a 10k gold lead. They outscale, they win in team fights, they now have Baron. We're gonna see how it goes. I love that OMG just don't care. They're like, yeah, we can finish this one off. Seriously, Braum does so much against this composition to delay the damage and really stop things from happening. Abel still putting out damage, while Aki also just doing a ton himself, not able to offer anything. Xiaopeng not able to follow in on the spear because he knows he'll lose out in the 1v1 to Abel, and right now just kind of kiting and dancing his way around the fight, hits the W, doesn't even need to throw out the Q for it. The Q that was meant for Xiaopeng ends up killing Sam D, and my god, man. We've had the same play twice in a week. Aiming and now Abel.
And I have to say, I love the confidence from Abel. I love that he knows Xiaopeng landed that spear and he definitely can't go for it. But we've got another play as they jump in onto New once again. See you later, yeah? My goodness, if that ain't mathematically correct, I don't know what is. The Drake surely goes the way of OMG now.
Munch, it's all gone wrong. For TT, your win condition at this point is
OMG, sir.
Okay. It has gone amazingly for OMG. You know, I guess it is a perspective thing, right? Maybe it shows where our inherent biases lay. Maybe I'm an underdog kind of guy, but you know, my favorite player is Mo. I guess that's kind of obvious, but you know, not rambling about nonsense. OMG can just keep pushing this in. We see that Sam Dean pushing in mid lane, and For OMG, they even have a decent amount of like poke coming out, even with just the Ezreal, with how far ahead he is, to where, I mean, a Mystic Shot hits onto Xiaopeng, even someone like Pudding, it's going to be chunking like a good, 15% of their HP each time.
Yeah, Pudding is not that tanky. The thing is, you have to build the battle song as well, right? So you don't even get tanky from your items really until much, much later in the game. And even then, you're a support. It's not like you've got a massive amount of income coming in. But realistically, when we look at the gold lead now, almost 5,000 in favor of OMG. They've got everything. Abel is 4 items strong on the blue build. And even the Kassadin. Look at those items. And Everfrost, Azonius, he has so much time he can buy during these fights. He has a needlessly large rod. He's level 15. He is 1 level away from that terrifying level 16 mark on the Kassadin. Spam your Monka S's, spam your clocks in the chat, because it's coming his way. And you can see the XP bar on the bottom left of your screen. He's 4/5 of the way there. It's about to happen, Lyric.
Yeah, and, I just want to see OMG go crazy with it, right? Sure, you can be doing what you're doing now. You look at bottom wave. Bottom wave's pushing in. You're controlling top side. You're getting deep vision, enemy jungle. You're looking for picks. What I want to see is some dives, Munch. We want to see some action, and it looks like OMG aren't going to give us that. It might actually be long Shings. Oh, Aki.
I don't know. It looks like they might give us that as they jump into the fray in the mid lane. In goes Longxing onto the back line. The Galio ult to follow it up. Triple knock up there. Aki's in trouble, but the Sterix keeps him safe. And now in with the showstopper. New has looked amazing this game, and he wants to keep that performance up. Cream chases Xiaopeng out the backside of the fight as Abel pushes in the mid lane with his team. He has so much front line. He can do whatever he pleases. It's a double kill coming through for Aki on the Xin Zhao. And now they can push into the base. And you know what? We didn't get the Kassadin pop-off that we asked for, but it does not matter. Cream doesn't have to carry every single game because Abel is here. Aki is stepping up new with the engagers. The face breaker into the backline there. It's a double kill for Cream. He finally gets some just desserts of his own. As the cream on top of the cake, on top of the pudding, if you will. It's 17-6, and it's a 2-0 victory for OMG.
And really nice to see them keep showing these different dimensions of their gameplay. I will say I really liked their draft this time, coming around over TT's. TT's was creative. I could understand the thought process, but we hit on many times of how hard it is to execute. I feel like you're hoping more for OMG to make mistakes, but yeah, OMG coming out strong. I think Abel, obviously a standout. Cold as well. Very good performance this game. As well as Braum. I think Braum is very